Are you successful? Like, really? By whose definition? Is it your definition? Is it your heart's definition? Is it your ego's definition? Can we actually break free of the, excuse my language, bullshit idea of what success is in this Western world we live in? I have taken a really long time to break free, and it still wants to get me. But it makes sense, right? Because we all marinate in what is the idea of success, and we marinate in it for good reason. When Alvin and I were talking on our recent interview, we talked about the fact that, car manufacturers don't say, "You're awesome, buy a Volvo." They say, "Your life is lacking, you're lacking, but if you get this car, you'll have it all together." We're suckers, man. And that's a pretty rude thing to say, but I'm in the sucker group, right? I get called into what I should buy, how I should look. I mean, if you look at beauty standards alone, for women we know, Mrs. Kardashian, Mama Kardashian, has got a whole new face. It's like they literally stuck a 30-year-old on her 70-year-old face. Our Nick has also got a new face at 58. Yeah, it's just... And they say men now, young men, are obsessed with their looks and so worried about what they look like. And at least they had that freedom before. It was a bit of links and out the door. Now they're having the work done and the hair removed. And this actually wasn't meant to be a talk on beauty, but I do think it's a very good way of looking at how we can get trapped in society's expectation versus our own. So I said that I have been very trapped, and oh, have I ever. Yes, by the commercial side of things. Yes, by wanting to look good to other people. Probably been more aware of that driver in terms of, the only time I said to Andy we need to get a new car was when I was driving a 20-year-old Corolla to business meetings, because I understood the world and I understood it wouldn't make us look as successful as we were. So we bought a 10-year-old Corolla. So I know how to balance that part, but like the podcast was called 50-50, I'm never very comfortable in making rogue choices that match me. So I do them because I'm 51% brave, but 49% of me is, oh God, everyone else has got an SUV, or oh God, everyone else has got a 4x2, or ooh, am I looking good enough for where I'm up to? Even having lost weight recently, I'm like, wow, my face is looking older. How do I get on board with that? So the reason I said that we marinate is I think this is key to this whole subject. When I shared with Alvin, I shared about my experience of living in Peru and then coming back to Perth and one of our wealthiest suburbs called Claremont. When I was in Peru, I was in a farming community called Urubamba on the way to Machu Picchu. And Westerners normally stop there to buy a Coke at the petrol station before they go to Machu Picchu. But we decided this is a lovely place to live and we're going to do it for several months. And as Westerners with relative money, it was heaven, as I'm sure I don't need to convince those of you who have done that kind of travel. But the point of this part of the story is to say, in terms of the pressure I felt to succeed from my ego, and my ego's name is Barbara. Now, that's not very fair because I know two wonderful Barbaras, but every time I try to give her a different name, it's always Barbara, and I've just got to go with it. So Barbara is grasping, Barbara is desperate, Barbara is looking good or trying to look good, Barbara worries what everyone else is doing, Barbara is very self-critical. I think you know Barbara. I think you've either met Barbara or Barbara lives inside you. For most people, there will be an element of Barbara. I wonder what the guy's one could be. Chad? I feel like it could be Chad. He's got the wrong attitude about life. So anyway, I'm in Peru, and what I was doing in Peru was I was caring for my son, who was then 2, poor grandmas. I was writing a book, which was The Great Joy, and I was watching Project Runway. I was going to the market, I was cooking food, and I was wandering around this small town with my son, with my husband, really just having the time of my life and taking it very easy. If I had been doing that in Perth, I can tell you now, Barbara would have been screaming in my ear, what the F are you doing? You don't look good, you look like a loser, where's the money coming from? You meant to have a career, you can imagine. But I had this great trick because I was in Peru. I could tell anyone back here I am a fabulous international traveller whilst I was binge watching Project Runway. They didn't need to know that. And I felt fabulous and they thought I was fabulous, I assume, or weird for those that had the right idea that I shouldn't have had my baby with me. But you get it, right? Barbara was told she's got enough reason to be away and be calm. Now, what happened was I came home with Barbara and we house sat a friend's house in Claremont for a month. And I didn't realise what was about to happen to me. But Barbara started to get very upset very quickly. And she started yelling at me, and what she was yelling was things like, what are you doing with your life? You are not a success. You need to be more successful. You actually need to be Australia's Oprah. So I don't know what you're doing with your time, but this is not right. As I went over to the shopping centre and ran into all the Claremont mums, which, you know, for those of you from Perth, you'll understand there's a lot of blonde, a lot of healthy, a lot of MILF. I just got more and more and more upset. I started following influencers online who could help you build your coaching business, help you build your speaking business, who, of course, had made all their money from desperate Barbaras like me and probably didn't even coach or speak anymore. Eventually, my husband said to me, we have to get you out of Claremont. And thank God we did. I had him help me. I had my darling Beck help me. They brought me back to a level of sanity. And I realised a couple of things at that time. One, I am porous. What I mean by that is wherever I am influenced by that environment. When I was in Peru, it was me, a few tourists, and many, many hardworking farmers who knew their place in life, knew what they were doing, were very secure, even though they didn't have much. And I was the internationally fabulous tourist pretending to do whatever. In Perth, I'm in Claremont, where there's tons of money, tons of success, tons of Range Rovers, tons of small white dogs, and I was not meeting the standard. So my porosity meant that I was picking up all the anxiety of that, all the need of that, all the desperation of that, and it sent me nuts, quite literally. So what we decided to do, which was a great decision for me, was move to the country. And by the country, I mean Glen Forest, which for many people is just too far a drive to live in Perth, but of course is not far from Perth, and let me get in amongst the trees and pretend I was back in Peru in the mountains, although they were about 6,000 metres tall and the hills in Perth are 400 feet, but just ignore that. And I was surrounded by trees and I had a little house and I felt freer again. But I'll tell you what, the only time I've really felt free, even in Perth and even in the trees, apart from most recently when I've sorted my head out, I can see clearly now the rain is gone, was when there was COVID. COVID meant that everything shut down and I had to be at home. And I actually wrote an article, which I don't think I ever published, called Peru in Perth, because I had the same emotional experience of being at home and having the okay to be at home and spend time with Sam and spend time in the garden and walk the dog and play basketball where we're allowed to locally. So I don't know if you feel the level of pressure that I did to look a certain way, succeed a certain way, but I suspect that for most of us, we do have a version of it. Elaine Dipperton wrote a fabulous book called Status Anxiety that is about this very topic. They say in the developing world that people are happier. I don't actually think that's exactly right, particularly when they can have a terrible time and trying to look after their families and all the basics of life. But I think the data shows they are far less anxious. And the reason they're far less anxious is they haven't been told to be successful, you have to have this money, this house, this face, this career, this family. You must always wear white. Be on Instagram talking about the love of your life and your forever home, and definitely have a filter on while it's happening. It's freaking awful, man. Like, doesn't it suck? Like, don't you think it sucks that we've all taken the wrong pill and just get so confused about what life is about? And because we're all trying to get along, because human beings just want to fit in, it's so hard for us to rebel. Because if you rebel, where's your mates going to be? You know, like, you want the winners to like you. I've had this experience. You know, I will say whatever I say and I'll do whatever I do, and I've just got just enough chutzpah to support myself. Even when I was massively insecure, I could still be as real as I could be. But I know why people give all the likes to the people that are saying the right thing on Facebook or the right thing on LinkedIn or the right thing on Instagram. Sometimes it's awesome content, like my friend, Daily Serve of Nutrition, but sometimes it's because they are doing what we're meant to do and everyone else goes, yeah, I have to like what you're doing because I want to be like that too. One final story about this idea, and then you can have a think for yourself. What is actually success for you? So 20-something years ago, I moved to Sydney to be a trainer, and that's when I met Alvin Kwa, who's on the interview you can see here. And I was very much in Barbara mode about what success would look like. But also my heart was leading me. I knew I wanted to be a trainer. I knew it was the right path. So I would say, like the old podcast name, I was 50-50. I'm always freaking 50-50. Anyway, off I go, and I lived there for a period of time. But I was getting less and less happy and more lonely. And I found it very stressful to be away. I didn't have my family or friends. Sydney's too big for me. And the energy, speaking of porous, it's too vibrational. It's too, it's too transactional, and it's too, what's the word when people come and go? Transient. And everyone there is seeking, right? This is in the suburbs I was in, which were, of course, the wealthy suburbs, being in pharmaceuticals. Someone said to me one day, what would you do if you had 6 months to live? And I thought I would be with my friends and family doing work I find meaningful. And I was living 5,000 kilometres away from my family on my own. My cat had just left me and moved next door. That was the straw for the camel. And I thought, this is not what success looks like to me. And I decided to come back to Perth. And the Barbara part of me was yelling. I think she yelled for about 6 months. If you go home, you're a loser. No one goes back to Perth after Sydney. If they do, it's because they can't hack it. You're bigger than Perth. You've got to be braver. Do more. Come on. But I had to come home. So I did. And I gave in my beautiful Berliner, for those of you old enough, fabulous company car. And I bought my mum's $2,000 Ford Laser off her. Almost got killed on the freeway when I went to overtake and realised I wasn't in the Berliner too late and putted along in the fast lane. But I got in this car, and I can tell you, I don't know if I have been happier since, but prior to that there were very few moments I felt as happy as the freedom of that. I got a consultant job in the city in career transition. I spent time at my mum and dad's as part of the boomerang generation before getting my own place again. And I used to walk through the city and look at people scurrying around to their office jobs and going, oh my God, I am free of that trap. So, you are not trapped if that fast life, that money life, that Instagram life, that Range Rover life is in your heart and soul. And don't get me wrong, like if things go the right way, now I know which way I want to go, wonderful. You know, I'm buying it'll actually be a Mercedes electric Mercedes. Of course, Andy wants a Tesla, but no, it'll be a Mercedes if it's up to me. You know that already if you know me. So it's not that I'm anti those things. What I wanted to challenge, and my very clever friend Adele suggested I talk about this, what does success actually look like to you? So I'll wrap up with Barbara and me to give you a sense of faux success and real success for me. Faux success was getting enough likes until my clever friend said what would be enough likes, and I realised I was insatiable because of my insecurity. It would be getting a lot of likes, it would be getting recognition, it would be getting a lot of money, it would be being on television, it would be speaking on stages, it would be this podcast being as big as Mel Robbins, you know. And the other part of me, Tam, particularly Tam now who's 52, success looks like this because I am doing what I want to do in a way that I think will make a difference, and it feels really aligned and authentic and so satisfying. but it's not doing it at a million miles an hour. It's not working 24 hours a day. It's not figuring out every algorithm and strategy and exhausting myself in trying to chase Mel Robbins, who I am also 50-50 about. It's having my lovely family. It's actually being calm enough to spend time with them. It's being clever enough to appreciate and be grateful for all the things I have. It's for the first time ever having a guilt-free rest and going, I can stop, have a cup of tea, look at the trees, and I'm not failing because I'm not doing what's next. Barbara's insatiable. I understand Barbara. I love Barbara. She has given me a lot of adventures. But she also needs to know that now Tam is driving the bus and Barbara can sit there and we're going to go good places, and they might even involve E-Class Mercedes, but success is going to be about what makes my heart sing, not my grasping nature get very short-term satisfaction. So for you, what would a satisfying life look like? And does it involve continuing to run and race and be in this world as it demands you be? Or can you choose you? Can you make a decision for you? A friend of mine described her change from grasping success to heart success, as I would call it, when she realised she'd always felt she should have had a particular career and everything revolved around that. When she realised what was actually important to her, and this does tend to happen for women, I think, at a particular age, she really realised it was very little to do with what she'd thought success was. There's a cliche around deathbeds and thinking, was my life a success? And everyone on their deathbed from the folklore says, did I follow my heart? Did I love the people around me? Did I make a difference? And did I take risks? Because there is no risk. It's all made up. It is all made up. You can do whatever the F you want, and maybe one random person will notice and not like it. But everyone's just thinking about themselves. You can do whatever you want. Imagine that. So I say all this with this freedom that I have, this world I live in, this financial freedom. And I realise not everyone has that. But I think the psychology around success is important for everyone who lives in this world. The Dalai Lama famously had someone say, I hate myself. Can you help me with that? And no matter what his interpreters said or how they tried to interpret it for him, he could not understand what they said. So they were a Caucasian from the Western world, and in his culture and his belief system, people do not have self-hatred. So he started asking, did you murder people? Did you do something very terrible? And the person said, no, I just don't like myself. And he just could not compute it. And that is a very good summary of how we confuse success in the Western world and how we've been demanded to think of it a particular way. But we are free, we are ourselves, and we can make choices. So there you go. What's success to you? Are you trapped or are you free? Fuck you, Western world. And we're lucky to be in it.